Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is truly a respectful entry. Unlike Age of Calamity, it has a canon story, distant past stages, new gameplay, playable characters, and much more. So be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and let's go over Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment honestly through the following 5 categories: story, level design or main quest map, gameplay, side quests, and soundtrack combined with presentation and performance. Age of Imprisonment is the canon story of the imprisoning war, or the distant past seen in Tears of the Kingdom's memories, expanded but also respectively recreated, as most of these cutscenes can be seen in the same or slightly different angles to what we saw in Tears of the Kingdom. Combined, they give us a whole level of depth to the greatest crisis faced by the first king of this Hyrule. Needless to say, this is a linear story, but which isn't exactly told through cutscenes, but also through brief walking sections. That is to say, introductions before getting into the action. And I would say this is particularly the case in the first chapters of the game. This way, the distant past becomes more alive in a whole new way. In the process, it is also setting a new benchmark for the Zelda franchise. The visuals of the cutscenes rival those of the memories found in the Switch 2 editions of Tears of the Kingdom, and are super impressive when presented in upscaled 4K and 60 frames per second. Just like in Age of Calamity, the cutscenes offer once again some of the best action showpieces in the Zelda franchise. Link in the flesh is naturally missing, as that is the canon story. But that also allows for a respectful and true story that is well written, including a brand new cast of characters that thrive alongside Princess Zelda and King Hyrule. At the same time, the real showstoppers, and in many ways main characters, are the charmer and talker, Korok Kalamo, and his partner, the mute mysterious construct, who together really shape the outcomes from start to finish. And yes, the full cast doesn't spend too much time together. But to be honest, having 2 or more storylines unfolding simultaneously offers a bigger payoff towards the big climax, but also allows to keep what we saw in the memories of Tears of the Kingdom separate to what is new and added in Age of Imprisonment. In the process, the game conveys interesting new lore about the Zonai, Ganondorf and the Gerudo, and how important imprisoning war was for most of the tribes of Hyrule, though most of all it reveals the faces of the sages and we get names for them, and in some cases even proper backstories. With it, we get some of the more emotional scenes in the entire Zelda series. By the end, you do feel that the story of this Princess Zelda has indeed reached its end, but it also feels complete. Is it a perfect addressing of story, world and character flaws found in Tears of the Kingdom? Sadly not, as Ganondorf isn't exactly the most active villain, just like what was the case in 2023. We see a little more of his scheming to claim one of the secret stones, but there's still a lot more that could have been done, especially after the conflict starts with the Blood Moon and the monsters from Hyrule Castle. There are some real missed story and character opportunities, and that does drag the experience a little bit down. The same can also be said about environmental storytelling. If you hope for a true redemption for the depths, then there are certain improvements. But sadly, the Sky Islands are a wasted opportunity, as it is even less prominent in this game's main quest than it was in Tears of the Kingdom. In addition to the few walking sections and, well, cutscenes, we also have story elements that are narrated through text sections during loading screens. This time, they are read by the Royal Chamberlain, who is chronicling the reign of King Hyrule and adding additional depth to the unfolding conflict. Now then, let's get over to the world and battle stages. So the map design in the main quest. Koei Tecmo, guided by the Zelda team, has delivered distant past Hyrule, just as they have promised. And though the main quest doesn't use the entirety of the map, the side quests fill out most of the blanks. But yes, seeing the Hyrule at the age of its founding by Hyrule is something that really stands out from Age of Calamity, and though there are a few urban locations, Imprisonment focuses far more on the landscapes of the oldest Hyrule in the Wild and Tears saga. The overworld map presented through the Purapad, rather than the Sheikah Slate, evolves the formula from Age of Calamity, and it works well as a break from the super intense combat sequences. There are multiple types of customization, and though you cannot change the appearance of the characters like we could for Link in Age of Calamity, there are a lot of ways to enhance your team as the playable cast grows as the story evolves. Most of all, we appreciate the time spent in and around Hyrule Castle. At the same time, more could have been done to bring the distant past homes, seeds of power and, well, key sites of several of the other races to life. I find it strange that we don't visit more of the most imposing distant past locations from Tears of the Kingdom, and that includes the memories, which again ties to the underutilization of in particular the sky and depths. Some of the battle stages do suffer as a result due to the lack of interiors, and it stands in stark contrast to the many urban locations where we fought in Age of Calamity or Tears of the Kingdom for that matter, as many key distant past locations that were instrumental to Tears' story simply aren't explorable. And that brings us over to gameplay. As since the reveal in April 2025, we have been aware that there would be major gameplay changes from Age of Calamity. Zelda with a proper Sword of Light this time, and the Tokyo Game Show Depths gameplay doubled down on this and demonstrated how both Sync Strikes and Zonai items change things significantly from the 4 Sheikah runes present in 2020. Personally, I would say that both really add to the spectacle, but also variety to make it feel fresh from the conflict against Calamity Ganon and his minions. Naturally, as a Warriors title, it follows a lot of the classic tropes. You have your typical outposts and keeps, destroying 1000 plus enemies, and overcoming bosses and some environmental puzzles. Combat-wise, we once again have the regular Y button and X button strong attacks, and also combinations of the two by not pressing the same button the entire time. In addition, characters have unique abilities, alongside the ability to Sync Strike and equip Zonai items. These offer true variety as you unlock new ones from the item dispensers, which also serve as a way to use up collected Zonai material. At the same time, Age of Imprisonment differs in the beginning from a typical Warriors experience with its focus on story. But this alteration doesn't go beyond the start of the actual imprisoning war, as most of the playable characters are unlocked following this turning point as all of Hyrule unites against the existential threat of the Demon King. Personally, I would say that it is hard to point out a favorite character, much more so than what was the case in Age of Calamity, where Link of course was the main character. But here, in Age of Imprisonment, you're actually motivated to switch between the cast more often, not only playing as Zelda or Rauru, but also the later sages, who gradually evolve, and they have different motivations to join King Rauru and Princess Zelda against Ganondorf. Variety between characters can also be seen between Rauru and Minoru. And even Calamon the Mysterious Construct do both act and play heroically. The hectic and high-paced gameplay truly shines in higher resolution and frame rate than in any prior Hyrule Warriors title. The same goes for side quests, map-based quests, and the post-game. The main quest as well as side missions once again benefit from the interactive map of Hyrule, allowing you to explore numerous environments and also manage the kingdom like, well, a king. Jokes aside, with each new playable character, you get a number of new missions, both resource and gameplay based. These are for the most part well structured, and pretty much mandatory on higher difficulties. Getting through the story will not take more than 20 hours, but with the side quests and post-game, you're definitely getting enough value for your $70. With that said, if you long for Sky Island's on-foot gameplay, then it is right in the side quests that you will find your fill. At the same time, be aware that these sequences are brief and don't expect to explore any groundbreaking structures, as Age of Imprisonment's focus is, as previously mentioned, not an interior combat, but rather big open battlefields. Luckily, unlike what is the case in Age of Calamity, the post-game is not needed to play to get the true ending and cutscene, which allows you to avoid some of the filler that game provided to extend the game's total playtime. This time, there's no need to go to YouTube to find out what happens. Alright, let's finish up with soundtrack and presentation, as great music has always been a staple of the Hyrule Warriors games, and Age of Imprisonment does not disappoint, as it is more or less matching most of the bangers we're still listening to from Age of Calamity. The soundtrack is great, and being able to listen to it through the gallery menu adds more value to the experience. There are some really great remixes from Tears of the Kingdom, but more importantly, a number of new tracks. To illustrate it with one example, the new Exploring the Depths theme has really become a personal favorite of mine. Overall, the sound design truly shines and can be adjusted in the menus. But apart from the amazing frame rate at 60 FPS and upscaled 4K, load times are also much improved. So what is our verdict for Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment? It meets for the most part our expectations, especially the technical. At the same time, the story and characters plus settings in the main quest are missed opportunities that could have been handled better. As a result, our final score for Age of Imprisonment is a solid 83 out of 100. It is a good game that could have reached a score around 90 if it took even greater advantage of the story, characters, and world of the distant past. But what do you think about Age of Imprisonment? Sound off in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press notification bell, and again for all notifications. Finally, a big thanks to our patreon.com/commonroll patrons, and in particular Raw producer Jonathan, and heroes Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, Holly Wolf, and Kintar. You rock, and please enjoy these awesome videos.